So we've seen a tumultuous week, yet another tumultuous week in UK politics. Looks as if we're set up for another. Deals that were said to be done with pro-EU Conservatives look as if they've fallen through, and we could end up with more threats to Theresa May next week.
Yep.
Are we? I mean, never-endum is the phrase that we used to talk about when it came to referenda on this subject. Now it seems we're in a sort of almost endless Brexit negotiation phase.
And there'll be some of your viewers who won't be, thankfully for them, closely familiar with the detail.
Really? But it's so simple.
I know. What is clear is that a promise was made to a group of Conservative backbenchers earlier in the week to get them not to vote against the government on the issue of Parliament getting a binding vote. Now, what was promised behind closed doors now needs to be written in legal text, and this is what is being disputed. And if you are trading sterling over the next 72 hours, you will. This is the key call. It's whether Theresa May can do what most commentators think she can't, which is appease two polar opposite parts of her party with a set of text that gives Parliament sufficient input, but not so much the people who feel that Parliament wants to block Brexit. Is unacceptable to them and lead to resignation.
Define meaningful.
Yes.
Very difficult to do.
Yeah.
What you see going forward, actually, on the whole Brexit negotiation is whether, actually, that timeline of March 2019 is now tenable, given we were expecting a deal in June. We're now talking about October. The amendment we're talking about may give Parliament a vote in February. That is getting so close to the deadline that maybe there'll be an extension of Article 50.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because we've actually been hearing that the EU might tolerate some sort of extension of that, even if it's only for a couple of months or so.
Yep.
Would that make a material difference?
Well, any time extension will make a material difference, given the lack of preparedness for either a cliff edge or indeed the transition that's potentially running from March 2019 to December 2020. What's interesting about this is, if you think of it through the eyes of the European Union and the European Commission, it's not unhelpful for them to say, look how difficult it is to go through the Article 50 process. If that must be extended because it's such a fraught process, that sends quite a strong message to other separatist movements. If you're worried about contagion, it's not the most difficult concession for the EU Commission to offer.